In today's video, we're going to be checking out the brand new release of Star Ace's Harry Potter Dobby the House Elf 1/6 scale collectible figure. And Dobby would be a considerably small character, which should translate also to a small figure, so let's take the tape measure to him. He's almost exactly 6 inches in height. For his outfit, they've gone ahead and given him like a makeshift sack, same as what he wore in the movie itself. It actually looks quite good, and I'm glad it's got as much forgiving feel, like forgiving fabric to it, as opposed to it being like a dense sculpted plastic. It's actually a real material, and it's got some really, if we look very closely, you can see some very small little patterns to that fabric as well, so it's not just simply a smooth fabric that they used for it. You got some stitching down below here as well, some extra little fabric, little strands here sticking out from the bottom, and you can see at the top there where it's tied around his shoulder. From a coloring standpoint, I think this looks fairly accurate to the movie itself. And if we just lift this up, Dobby actually doesn't have anything underneath it, so, you know, not that you would want to be removing this. I guess theoretically you could. Again, I don't see a reasoning why you would want to, though. Dobby's face sculpt is good. No, it's fantastic. Once again, I've mentioned this through lots of these reviews of the Star Ace Harry Potter pieces, and really some of the other pieces that Star Ace have released over the course of time. And one thing that always impresses me is their paint. Dobby's not only has a really good lifelike sculpt to him, as lifelike as he could be for a CG character in a movie, but again, it's that paint, I think, that really delivers the strong sculpt here. But the only thing I would say could have maybe been fixed a slight bit is the eyes. The eyes don't as much read lifelike as the rest of the face and the skin does. Like, the skin is done really well, where you can even see, like, it's slightly discolored where the wrinkles of the ears would be. And it's almost got like a little bit of a speckling airbrush that's been added to the skin tone. So it does give it that real sense of life and personality. But again, the only thing I would really say I would fix to it, or would have fixed to it, is I would have made those eyes, I don't know, maybe a slight gloss, I think, could have gone a long way. Because like the skin doesn't have a sheen to it, but it's the shading and stuff that gives it life. I think the eyes are almost a little too matte in color. If you had just gone in and maybe added like almost like a wet, just a clear gloss to that, I think maybe could have helped bring those eyes going from something that looks like a plastic eye, I think, something to a little bit more realistic in nature. Dobby also has quite a lot of different facial expressions over the course of the movie. Sad, scared, of course a little bit more sterner in expression. This one's a very neutral, very complacent looking facial sculpt. It'd be cool if they had actually given us a couple of other head sculpts, maybe at least one other that we could have just swapped out. He does have a little bit of the hair at the top there, which looks like it's actually been sculpted as well painted. And then he's got the little chin beard down there as well. Again, the paint, I can't say this enough, is done really, really well. And if we just kind of move the outfit slightly out of the way, you can see too, like they spent just as much time on the torso and you know, and on the neck as they did with the face. In fact, let's see if I can actually, I don't really want to take this apart. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. You can see that even if you had removed this, which I really don't want to because I know I'm never going to be able to get the knot as good as it was, but even underneath that, they didn't skimp on additional paint for the texturing that they added to his torso here. He's a rather lanky character in the movie and translates here well also in the 6-inch 6-scale version release. Very, very narrow, malnourished arms, very thin arms here in Dobby, and coming down to his 3 fingers and thumb rather than 4 fingers and thumb. Sculpted in fingernails there, a little bit of wrinkling there. Very nice paint on the hands and even on the interior of the palms as well. Coming down to his feet. Now his feet, I'll just show you here, are somewhat flat on the undersides. He actually stands better when you have the feet closer together. It seems actually the further you spread the feet almost start doing, well, as you can see right there, they slightly start angling. The feet have a slight angle already to them, but when you bring them out, there's no real compensation for the ankle portion. So what ends up happening is you've got like now this gap that's forming by spreading the legs outward. In this instance, I would suggest probably keeping the legs closer together to guarantee that Dobby will not topple over. And even then, you might want to just kind of bring the waist forward, just kind of bring the torso forward so it's got a slight arch to it, so it guarantees he's not going to topple over. Now he gets also an extra interchangeable hand. This particular one is perfect for the little spell effect, the little magic effect that he can come included with as well. Actually, in the instructions, funny enough, if I just reach off here, just grab the instructions. In the instructions, right here, it actually indicates that you need to use a hairdryer to warm up the socket area of his torso, and then you'd be able to pry the hand outward. And I tried heating it up a little bit. It still seems like it wants to have a little bit of resistance. But I thought in the meantime I would just show you what the interchangeable hand would look like. There's the peg right there, and I can understand certainly why heating it up would be important, because it's got these little ridges to it. It's enough that once you push it into the torso, it's pretty much fixed in there, that, you know, if you attempt to try to pull it out, you could cause damage, or you could potentially break that plug right off, that little peg at the end of his shoulder. So heating it up, I would advise definitely doing. In the meantime, though, here is the interchangeable hand. And it's basically about the same sort of hand, obviously from the shoulder to the elbow. And then from the elbow onward, they've bent the hand. So this hand is good for holding the sock and some of the other accessories we'll look at in a second. I wish he had elbow articulation, but I understand the nature of any figure that has really skinny limbs. Adding elbow articulation or knee articulation for that figure really guarantees that over the course of time those limbs get a little loose. So I'm glad actually that Star Ace went the route of going just a single arm piece and then just giving us the option to switch it out if you want to go with this arm instead. Before we look at his accessories though, I just want to show you how his articulation stacks up. So he gets a ball joint in the head. Theoretically you can rotate the head all the way around. He's got a slight nod back and forth, up and down. Shoulders are about the same sort of thing. They rotate forward, back, out. No elbow articulation, no wrist articulation. Legs essentially are the exact same thing as the hands. He's not as posable, say, as the likes of a Harry Potter or some of the other larger adult characters in the movie. Very, very simplistic articulation. But again, for a figure this size, I don't know if I would have said, gee, I wish I could have had more articulation in the shoulders, more articulation in the elbows, more articulation in the knees and ankles. Guaranteed, it would just decrease the longevity of a figure like this, because I know those limbs would get loose over the course of time. This is really the smarter route to go. For a piece like this, you're really getting it, and the reason why we're looking at it today is he's a great accompanying piece. For his size, though, you couldn't have incorporated additional articulation than what we're seeing right now. So here are the accessories that come included with Dobby. For example, you get yourself Tom Riddle's diary, which, as you can see, has a big hole in it. The book actually is done quite nicely, even to the point where it looks like they've indicated, slight indication there of pages in the book itself. Looks very good, and you got a little bit of the corners, the metal corners of the book, and again, that big hole in there. You also get yourself the claw, I think it's a claw, and which sticks. You can actually stick it right through the diary here. And actually, even this is pretty neatly done. I mean, it's got a little bit of like a brown shading to it. little bit of that cream color. Looks actually quite good. And again, we're just going to stick that in the book like so. Put that to the side. Also comes included with a dagger, which has a very intricate level of detail to the blade itself. The handle doesn't have nearly as much, but still delivers very strong on the paint. See, like there's a little spider skull. I think you can see it on the handle portion, and that's almost been painted almost like a greenish black. Then he also gets a sock. Good old Dobby with a sock. And it's actually a real fabric sock, which is good. When you get it out of packaging, it actually comes with this little cardboard insert. I suppose you could leave it in there as well, but I mean, it doesn't help make the sock softer by incorporating and keeping that in there. So he does come with that. And then he comes with the included interchangeable hand with the magical effect. Now the magical effect is kind of like a little starburst, which is in a translucent orange plastic. It's got this like little tab on the underside here that you can fit in between Dobby's fingers, giving you something that kind of looks like that. From the side, it does kind of look like he's holding a plastic flower, but if you have it straight forward like this, it does actually look pretty successful. Again, the only thing that you would need to do, and at the time of reviewing this, I just haven't attempted to pull the arm out because I really would not want to be the guy that breaks the arm on camera. So he does come with a little interchangeable arm, but I will stress this though. Heat this up. I'm going to go back and try to heat this up again and take the arm out and replace it out with this hand right here. Ultimately though, I think what I may end up deciding on doing is swapping it for this hand altogether, because I could also use this not only for the magical effect, but I could also probably use it for the book and also possibly for the dagger as well. I would not say though, I could see myself interchanging and swapping these hands out and the arms out on a regular basis. I think once I settle on one arm, I probably would stay on that arm so I don't run the risk that I may potentially at some point break that peg when I'm switching the arms out. Dobby the Elf from Star Ace's Harry Potter line is a good accompanying piece if you've already been collecting the Harry Potter figures themselves. Dobby doesn't really have as much in the way of posability, doesn't have as much in the way of the accessories that the other characters did have. However, I think he still makes up for it with a really good sculpt, really good paint, and really good overall execution. I don't necessarily would say I need articulation, as mentioned in the review, in the elbows, the knees, and the ankles, because I know over the course of time a figure this lanky would eventually start developing loose limb syndrome. I'm glad they went the route of keeping the articulation simple and relying more so on the sculpt and the paint to deliver home a very strong figure. Everything about this figure I quite like. The eyes I think could have been just slightly worked on, maybe giving a little slightly darker undertones to it, and maybe giving a slight clear coat over top of it so it didn't look as matte as it does. Everything else about this figure I quite like, and for any Harry Potter fan, I would highly recommend picking this guy up and adding it to your existing collection. Today, once again, we were having a look at the Star Ace Harry Potter Dobby the House Elf. This was the 1/6 scale collectible figure. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to this channel, make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below. Of course, more videos will be coming your way soon. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.